very easy to distinguish between these. And it's not showing. There we go. And these are the same slides. For those of you who have not taken my class before, when I do histology, I show you the exact same slides when we do the histology. So anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. Here, there's a dividing line between them. Anterior is over on this side, posterior is on that side. The distinguishing feature is the anterior pituitary is replete with blood vessels. So you're going to see small blood vessels that have ghosts of red blood cells in them. The posterior pituitary is just ends of neurons and connective tissue. And so you don't see a lot of blood vessels there, and you see a lot of connective tissue with elongated nuclei present in the connective tissue cells. So let me go to higher power so we can see that. Anterior pituitary is over on this side. And I'm pointing at blood vessels. I'll go to higher power so we can see it. Blood vessel here. There's another one there. Here. There. Blood vessels are everywhere. And the cells are almost like a simple cuboidal epithelium. They've got nice round nuclei. And that helps distinguish them. And you look over to this side and you don't see any blood vessels over here. But I will go to the highest power so we can see that. So I'm sitting right in the dividing line there. So let me go over to this side. And I think everybody can see. I mean, here's a blood vessel and you can see ghosts of red blood cells there. Same kind of thing that's right here. Same kind of thing that's right over here. And look at the nuclei in these cells because they're little clusters of cells. And as I said, they're almost like simple cuboidal epithelial cells. And they sit there in little nests and they release hormones that we're going to talk about today. And the hormones get immediately into the blood vessels and they're transported through the body. So because of the fact that we see all the blood vessels here, that immediately tells us that's anterior pituitary. Now let's go across the divide over to this side. And all we have is we have a lot of elongated nuclei that are present here. Those are from connective tissue cells. We don't have those simple cuboidal epithelial cells that are producing hormones. Posterior pituitary doesn't make any hormones. It releases hormones that are made in the hypothalamus and come down through the axons and then are released from the neurons. So no hormones produced here. Hormones are produced in the anterior. So that's how we distinguish those. Next one says we're going to look at parathyroid gland. Parathyroid, 4 little nodules that sit on the posterior side of your thyroid. And there are 2 types of cells present here. There are a lot of blood vessels present here too. And in this case, it's been stained so that you can actually see the hemoglobin in the red blood cells, but you don't see any nucleus present there. But the 2 types of cells here are called chief cells and oxyphils. Now, let me go up in with the, all right, nice view here. Here's a blood vessel with 4 red blood cells in it. Now that's pink. Now pink is going to be a distinguishing feature when we look for oxyphils, and I'll point that out, but they have a nucleus. But when we look at the cells that have a fairly large nucleus and a completely clear cytoplasm. Those are the chief cells. They are the ones that make the parathyroid hormone. So they're clear cytoplasm, large spherical nucleus, and as I said, clear cytoplasm. Here, this is a blood vessel. Now let's come down, and we have a whole. I've looked through here, and I found a whole nest of cells that have a large nucleus, but they have pink cytoplasm. Those are called oxyphils. It's unknown what they do. So pink is kind of the distinguishing feature here. Pink for the hemoglobin of the red blood cells. But if you have pink cytoplasm, you are an oxyphil. If you have clear cytoplasm, you are a chief cell, and you make a hormone. Right, next gland that we're going to look at is the thyroid gland. Thyroid gland is sitting on the anterior side of the neck. And we have these structures called follicles. And a follicle is a round structure that's made up, its wall is a simple cuboidal epithelium. So this is a follicle, that's a follicle, that's a follicle, that's a follicle. So when I go to a little higher power, this is a nice example right here. This entire thing, if I ran the pointer from this side to that side and said, what's that structure called? It's called a follicle. And the single cell here with the nice spherical shape to it, it's a simple cuboidal epithelium. It's called a follicular cell. It is a single cell that forms the wall of the follicle. It's the one that's helping to form the hormone. Now, in this particular gland, something unique happens, and that is the hormone in an immature state is made and stored inside the space within the follicle. So that's the follicle. This is a simple cuboidal epithelial cell that's a follicular cell, and the stuff out here is called colloid. And the colloid is the immature form of the hormone, and it's stored outside of the cell for upwards of 3 months. Now, I'm telling you all this, and you haven't heard any of it yet in the lecture, but over the next couple weeks you'll hear all of this. So that's a follicle, this is a follicle, this is a follicle. The entire thing is a follicle, that's a follicular cell, and the stuff in the center is called colloid. Next one is the adrenal gland. That's that pyramid-shaped gland that sits on the superior surface of your kidneys. And we come over here, we're going to look at 3 parts to it. I'll show you at low magnification and we'll go to higher. The connective tissue covering on the outside, that's right here, is the capsule of the adrenal gland. And immediately inside, in the light area, relatively speaking light area, that's called the adrenal cortex. And the adrenal cortex makes a specific type of hormone, and that we'll talk about when we talk about the adrenal gland. It's actually made up of 3 regions, but we can't distinguish the regions. Well, we could, but we're not going to try to distinguish the regions. That's the cortex. Cortex means bark. Bark is on the outside of a tree, so the cortex is on the outside of the adrenal gland. Look where it's very, very dark here. And that's the medulla, that's the core of the gland. It makes 2 different kinds of hormones there. So if I go to a little higher power, there's the capsule on the outside. And then we have cortex, light-staining cells because they make a hormone that is based in lipid. And when you do the preparation for staining, all the lipid is removed. So there's nothing inside of the cytoplasm of the cell, and then we come up here, and this is medulla. All right, 2 more. Next one is pancreas. Most of the pancreas, when we look at it, most of the pancreas is very dark looking, and the individual clusters of cells there are called, a single one is called an acinus. Collectively they're called acini, or they're called acinar cells. And I made note, we'll look at those and talk about them in part 3 in the histology. We won't do it here. We're interested in finding these light-staining regions where hormones are made in the pancreas. And they're called islets of Langerhans, and you can see it. This is a light staining region here. This is light staining because there's connective tissue around blood vessels. But let me go to higher power. All right, the darker staining cells of the acinar cells, all they're doing is making digestive enzymes. We're not worried about that. We want to see the islet of Langerhans, and I put it in the center of the screen right here, and it's pretty obvious. These are lighter staining cells. They make insulin, they make glucagon. So this is an islet of Langerhans, but 99% of our pancreas is made up of these acinar cells. I'm just putting that off to the last part. And the very last slide we look at is the pineal gland, which is non-functional in us, pretty much at this point in time. It's much more important when we're younger. And the cells degenerate. The cells degenerate. When they degenerate, they calcify, and that's referred to as brain sand. It will be obvious to everybody when you see brain sand. These are still living cells right here. When we come down like this, and that's brain sand. Degenerated cells that have calcified and then just acquired waste material and are storing it. All right, Vanessa, you can turn that off now.